Hi, this is Richard Weylman, and I want to welcome everyone who's listening to this webinar, Cracking the Physician's Code, How to Acquire Physician Clients and Why Now is the Time. I'm so delighted to introduce you to Dr. Vicki Rackner. Vicki is a retired surgeon. I've known her for many years, over 12 years. She's had a very successful 30-year medical career, and this gives her keen insight necessary to help our coaching and our consulting clients grow their business in the medical marketplace. I think the thing that strikes me about Vicki is she really translates the world of medicine into understandable strategies and tactics that are critically important to engage both physicians and other medical professionals. She's not only had 30-year experience as a surgeon, but also an educator. She worked for many years in a medical community as a leader, and she understands the most direct route to success in these complex and often misunderstood niches around medicine, around physicians, and the medical market. So, to help you elevate business performance in today's marketplace and to get a physician's insight into the medical market, here's Dr. Vicki Rackner, the newest member of our coaching team. Vicki?
Thank you, Richard. I'm thrilled to join the Weylman coaching staff, and I look forward to helping teams elevate their performance, specifically by helping them acquire physician clients and keep them for life. So let's dig right in and examine how to crack the physician code. The Wharton School of Business did a study of over 800 financial advisors, and they discovered that the single factor that selected for success was the advisor's ability to understand the client. So here's what you need to know about physicians. One of my patients may have nailed it when he said, "You know, you doctors are strange birds." And he's right. You have to be a little bit different to answer this call to medical service. There are some temperament traits and characteristics that help physicians get into and through medical school that can either work for you or against you. For example, if a cardiologist is doing an angioplasty on your father, you want that cardiologist to not be distractible. However, if you're trying to engage that same cardiologist, this ability to focus and avoid distractions can work against you. There are life consequences to being a doctor. If you tell your daughter you're going to be at the soccer game, you are. However, if a physician makes the same promise to a family member, there can be disappointment because patients always come first. Now, it's this incredible challenge, and when you contact a physician, you never really know what they're going through in any given day. I remember going to a dinner party, and the host was a family doctor. The wife told me about a conversation they had had. This doctor had delivered a child. At age 4, he diagnosed the child with leukemia. The child had gone through 2 bone marrow transplants and had just failed the second one. The family had called this doctor and said, "Look, the doctors have recommended this special experimental treatment, but we've poked our son so much. What should we do? Should we try this, or should we just go to Disneyland?" Anytime that you're trying to reach a doctor, they may be in some really profound chapter that tests their mettle. In addition, it's really important for you to understand that physicians face this core challenge. They're dealing with this otherworldly place of life and death, yet they're doing it with human limitations. So if you forget to pick up milk on your way home, well, your family might be a little annoyed. But if a physician forgets to order the antibiotics before a procedure, that patient could wind up in the intensive care unit with sepsis. So how do doctors deal with this human error issue? Well, they've got an order. They've got a way of doing things. There's a time and a place for everything. And that's important for you because, unfortunately, you're not built into that order. Physicians focus on patient care. In addition, there's a pecking order of physicians. everyone knows their place, and in general, the people who are higher on the pecking order enjoy higher social status and higher incomes. So when you're looking at physicians, the radiologists and the surgeons, the people who do invasive procedure, are the high earners. So physicians also have this big tradition of turning to each other for advice. You know, if you've got a really, really tough case, you want to know what your trusted colleagues are thinking. That means that physicians share information with each other on a regular basis. So when you think about physicians, maybe a picture you can have in your mind is a group of people who sort of suit up to go onto the battlefield and try to win the battle against life and death. They have this constant stress. Are they going to come short? Are they going to be able to meet this challenge? Or will they fall short in any given day? And the threat of either bad outcomes or even lawsuits hangs over their head like the sword of Damocles. So that's what you need to know about physicians. But here's what financial advisors are so surprised to discover. They are often shocked to understand that doctors do not like talking about money. I remember watching this show, Shark Tank, and one of the investors was talking about how much he loved money. You'd never hear a physician talk like that. There's something kind of almost dirty about talking about money, and I'll tell you how it starts. In the Constitution, we've got a separation of church and state. And in medical ethics, we have this separation between patient care and a patient's ability to pay. In other words, doctors are supposed to be blinded to financial concerns. In addition, doctors don't have any formal business training or training in financial literacy. So we feel vulnerable when conversations come to money. And to be quite honest, I think most doctors would prefer just not to talk about money at all. However, they can't really afford to do that. They're high earners and they've got to be responsible with their money. This is the kind of income that we're dealing with. So what do physicians do about financial concerns? Well, there's three strategies. The first is benign neglect. They just assume, well, gee, we've got plenty. We don't really have to think much about it. You know, let's not buy too many extravagant toys, but the money will just kind of take care of itself. Some doctors are do-it-yourselfers. They do dig in and try to get information about investing and maybe talk with some of their colleagues. If you were only a fly on the wall of the surgeon's lounge or the doctor's dining room, you'd see how this works. You know, one physician says, hey, do you know anything about blah? And physicians will share resources with each other. The third strategy is delegation. Physicians find somebody that they trust and say, look, take care of this for me. Sometimes it's the partner, the husband, or the wife. Sometimes it's delegated to a third trusted person, like maybe the medical office manager. But it can be really risky because physicians don't always trust the right people. A colleague of mine got her entire retirement embezzled by her trusted office manager. So physicians do not like talking about money, yet they've got to. They just got this huge wake-up call. It takes the form of rising taxes, not just on their high income, but on the transfer of wealth. About 60% of physicians come from families in the top quintile of earnings. If there's one thing that physicians hate, it's paying taxes. Then there's the Affordable Care Act. Now, you may have heard the AMA say that they endorse the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, but only about 25% of physicians belong to the AMA. If you look at physicians in general, they think it's a step backwards in patient care, and they know it's a step backwards for them. They're losing their autonomy, and in addition, they have additional expenses to meet regulatory requirements. This electronic medical record is one big example. Physicians are going to have to spend tens of thousands of dollars in order to accommodate that requirement. Then there's fee reductions. Medicare is undoubtedly, in the very, very near future, going to reduce compensation by 30%. And as Medicare goes, so too goes the rest of the insurance companies. So physicians know that their business expenses are rising, their incomes are decreasing, and they're wondering, what are we going to do? Further, those physicians who are looking at retirement are wondering, am I going to be able to afford the lifestyle I thought? Today, 40% of physicians are 55 or older. Many of them simply don't know, do I have enough? Will the economy recover in time so that I can get the kind of investment income that I hope to and expected to get? What are physicians' top concerns? They are this decreasing reimbursement, their fees being cut, their rising expenses, and costly regulatory changes. So let me just step back here and sort of summarize what we've talked about. We've talked about the fact that doctors are busy. Even their own family members don't get as much time with them as they'd like. They don't like talking about money. And so how are you going to connect with them? And I'm here to say there is a way to build relationships with doctors and help them build their wealth. It's just a little different, and that's what we're going to talk about next. I think of wealth building as filling a bathtub. I know that your expertise is avoiding water in the tub escaping, seeping out through taxation or spending. But what doctors are worried about is the spigot. The spigot is slowing down. Even though this is not your expertise, can you meet doctors where they are? Help them solve the problems that are important for them so that you can build the relationships that you want with them and help them build their wealth. And here's how doctors think about wealth. They think about it as the ability to do what they want to do when they want to do it. They want to have control over their financial destiny. What are the biggest trends in medicine? Well, there's a growing discontent. This theme of erosion of autonomy really weighs heavily on physicians. And I know that when we delivered a talk to a state medical society about how to get back to the dream, that was one of the most attended events that association had ever had. Physicians are worried about selling their practice, so let me just very quickly give you a 50-year history. In 1965, when Medicare first came into existence, about 80 or 90% of physicians were in solo private practice. Over the next 20 or so years, individual physicians got together and formed group practices to take advantage of economies of scale. Well, in the 90s, this disaster, according to physicians, of managed care came into being. So what happened was essentially the insurance companies said to the doctors, look, you've been sending us bills that we've been paying. These costs are getting out of control, and what we're going to do is we're going to tell you how much we're going to pay. This was a huge change. So hospitals and clinics went to these practicing physicians and said, look, we as a large organization can negotiate better fees. Sell your medical practices to us, and we will make sure that you get paid higher fees. Well, many physicians did just that. They basically sold their autonomy to become employees, and by the end of the 90s, about 60% of physicians were still in private practice. Today, it's down to 40%. And by the end of next year, the thought is that it's going to be down to 1 in 3 practices. What does this mean for you? A couple of things. First of all, this is money in motion. When hospitals and clinics purchase these practices, the physicians get a 6 or 7-digit settlement. So they've got a lump sum to invest. Further, there are opportunities on either end. helping physicians get settled into this new employment condition. Next, physicians are dealing with how are they going to replace this revenue that's being cut with the Medicare cuts. And they're going to be looking at entrepreneurial efforts to help them replace this lost income. You know, we have an article published in the Journal of Medical Practice Management. Some of our advisors are giving this as a, sort of a hostess gift to attract the attention of physicians and help build relationships. Many physicians are really actively engaged in retirement planning. Do I have enough money to retire? And what am I going to do to help get there? Maybe you could offer some tips about 3 or 4 questions that physicians can ask themselves to know whether or not they're really in a position to retire. Here is the biggest secret that successful financial advisors know, and write this one down. If you want to conduct business with physicians, conduct yourself as one. Now, high performers like yourself already know that people like doing business with people they know, like, and trust. But neuroscience is helping us understand why. It turns out that our brains are wired with special cells called mirror neurons, like looking in the mirror. So if you went to pick up a pen, a certain set of neurons would light up in your brain. If you watch somebody else pick up that same pen, the same nerves light up. In other words, we're wired to connect. You build rapid rapport when people can see part of themselves in you. And if you want to just do a simple experiment, the next time you get together with somebody, just mirror their body language or their speech patterns and see how much rapport you can build with that. So when somebody says, I like you, what they're really saying is, I'm like you. I see part of myself in you. So if you want to build relationships with physicians, conduct yourself like one. And it's not that much of a stretch. If you think about the core of what you do, it's exactly the same thing that physicians do. You manage risk, you exercise good judgment, and help people make important choices about a future given the uncertainty. Successful financial advisors are able to do for their physician clients what physicians do for patients. They reproduce the doctor-patient relationship. And I mean this in a very literal way. So if you think about the last time you went to a doctor, and you think about the qualities that you liked in that doctor, the qualities that you seek out in those doctors, embody those, embrace them. If you think of your ideal experience at a clinic, or the way that you'd like a physician to follow up after you've had some testing done, reproduce it. Think about how you yourself conduct yourself when you're a patient, when you've got something scary happening, and know that that's exactly the way it is for your physician clients. If you embrace this model, you essentially have a litmus test. Let's say you wanted to launch a marketing campaign. Maybe you wanted to cold call orthopedic surgeons. Well, what would you think about an orthopedic surgeon who called you at home at night and said, hello, I'm wondering if you have back pain because I have a new great surgical procedure to help? That wouldn't work. And the high performers find that the things that really do work in this very specific niche are the same kinds of efforts that physicians engage in order to acquire patients. So let's talk about the difference between the doctor role and the patient role. The word doctor comes from the Latin root for teacher, educator. Physicians educate their patients, and successful financial advisors educate their clients and increase their financial literacy. The word patient comes from the Latin root for suffering, and we know that when people are in pain, when they're frightened, they don't use their thinking brain, their cerebral cortex. Instead, they use their emotional brain, their limbic system. So we know from studies that patients retain, on average, about 30% of what doctors tell them. And it's because of this issue of the emotional brain getting engaged. That's the problem. Well, you know what? When physicians are talking about their wealth, they get frightened too. They feel overwhelmed. In fact, they sort of feel like prey. Physicians manage their wealth like patients manage their health. So as you look at your physician prospects and clients, you might think of the person who's treating you and your family. Instead, it's more like you're wearing the white coat and the physician is in that gown. They're frightened. They need your leadership. They need the exact same things that you want and need when you see a doctor. You want somebody calm. You want somebody competent. You want somebody you know you can trust. And be that person. All right, well, when it comes to financial advisors who are in the physician niche, these advisors fall into one of two camps. There are the high performers who get a great return on their investment, and then there are the hobbyists who make investments without really seeing the return. Here's the 7 habits that separate the high performers from hobbyists. And as you embrace these habits, you will increase your ability to join the high performers. First, high performers adopt a spirit of service. Physicians have made a solemn oath to help patients, to improve patients' condition. You can help serve physicians by putting your physician clients' interests first. Put the spotlight on them and not on you. You know, this relationship begins with hello, quite literally. I don't know how you answer the question, what do you do? But many hobbyists will say something like, I'm a financial advisor. Well, I remember being at a family wedding and somebody asked me, what do I do? I said, I'm a surgeon. And she said, what kind of surgeon? And I said, I'm a general surgeon. And her eyes just got big as saucers and she said, oh, you're the person who puts those warning labels on the cigarette pack. So even though you know what it means to be a financial advisor, that doesn't mean that physicians know what that means. And I advise...
This is Richard. You make a great point here, and we've seen it in our coaching together. And I just want to reemphasize this point that Vicki's just made. So many advisors, when they're asked by a physician or anyone else, what do you do? They answer the question, I'm a financial advisor. You have to reset your brain. And as Vicki could give you many, many stories, and her and I working together, that one of the things that when someone asks you, what do you do? Your brain should be, here's what I do for people like you. So you could simply say, as an example, what do you do? Answer the question, well, what my physician clients say I do for them, if you know you're speaking to a physician, and then articulate if you will, an outcome. If you don't know if they're a physician, if anybody asks you, what do you do? You should answer the question, well, what my clients say I do for them, as an example, is to grow and protect their wealth. That way you are speaking in their perspective from a spirit of service versus talking all about you and what you do, because when people ask you what do you do, they're really wanting to know what do you do for people like me. It's kind of the same question when they say, why should I buy from you? Well, what you do, how you do things, or who you are is not the answer to why, nor is it the answer to what you do for people like them. Vicki, do you agree?
I absolutely agree. And what you said, Richard, is that you want to articulate something that your listener values. And I want to emphasize again that physicians value control. So one answer that you might want to explore is, I help physicians take control of their financial destiny.
And the first question I would ask is, how do you do that? Which is exactly the question you want that physician to ask, because that opens the door for you to sit down and do a good diagnosis and eventually write a prescription, to stay in the same vernacular.
Absolutely. You want to engage physicians. That's the big challenge. And when you can pique their interest and give them a little bite of something that they really want. That's the magic. Well, let's go on to the next thing. High performers have focus. They know what kinds of physicians that they serve. Look, if God forbid you or a member of your family had a serious medical condition, you would go to the expert. You would go to the person who sees patients with that medical condition all day long. Physicians are the same. When you have focus, you establish the kind of great outcomes that will attract more people like that. Hobbyists tend to try to be all things to all people. High performers have focus.
Vicki, does that include focusing on specific niches within the physician market, particularly in a metropolitan area? Is that an effective strategy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there are three ways of defining, how you want to focus yourself. And I'm happy to talk about them now. The high performers tend to satisfy three criteria. The first criteria is that you want to choose people who are like-minded and share a similar source of pain. You want to make sure that the solution that you find for one member of the group is going to be able to help multiple members of the group. And what we find is that different groups of doctors and physicians tend to be quite different from another. An orthodontist is very different than an orthopedic surgeon. So if you target this by, say, specialty or the kinds of physician, whether it's a dentist or orthodontist, that tends to select for like-minded people who share a similar pain. Secondly, you want to take advantage of the real magic of this medical niche and be able to harness the power of word of mouth. If there's one great thing about this space, it's the ability of word of mouth to spread quickly. So you want to choose wisely so that members of your target focus get together regularly and have a chance to talk about you regularly. Like, I found out the name of almost all of my advisors in the Surgeon's Lounge. We just shared that kind of information. And if you offer an extraordinary experience worth talking about, I promise you, they're going to talk about you. The third thing that you want is that you want something that aligns with who you are so you can bring out your strengths. Richard, I don't know if you remember, we were talking with that advisor with Merrill Lynch. She was the wife of an anesthesiologist, and she was a little frustrated, personally and professionally. Personally, she was frustrated because she couldn't get her husband to sit down and talk about their money. He said to her, look, you're the financial wizard. I'm leaving it in your hands. I don't want to be bothered. But she also wondered, how was she going to meet other members of his group? And I said to her, we said, well, maybe what you want to do is not deal with the male anesthesiologist. Maybe you want to approach the wives of the anesthesiologist. That aligned with who she was and the kinds of challenges that she had mastered. So we've dealt with other advisors. We have the advisor who was diagnosed with colon cancer at a very young age, and he's working with oncologists. Right. We have another who always wanted to be an orthodontist for whatever reason. He's working with orthodontists. So those three criteria, shared source of pain, word of mouth, and you have affinity. That's the formula for a winning combination.
Thank you.
A pleasure. All right, next, high performers invest in relationships. There's a very famous saying among physicians that says that the secret of the care of the patient is caring for the patient. High performers spend time and let physicians know that they really care about them. And this relationship building can take time. Pharmaceutical sales reps know that on average it takes between 6 and 10 interactions before physicians change prescribing behavior. So high performers tend to move fast, and it just feels wrong to physicians. It's sort of like going out on a date and, on the first or second date, talking about how many children that you want. So slow, just know that there's a slow, steady, organic way of building relationships. Look, you're trying to build relationships with people who invested 10, 15 years into getting to where they are. Be patient. Next, high performers conduct client-centered conversations. In other words, their focus is on how they improve the condition of clients. Locally, we've got two groups of bariatric surgeons who are on TV advertising. One of them has sort of a scene of 5 different surgeons in white coats. They're talking about how many cases that they've done. There's another commercial that has the patients with the before and after picture, and they just tell their stories. Well, you can imagine which physician is attracting the most attention. I'm not suggesting that you offer testimonials, but what I am suggesting is that when you're talking about yourself, it's not as interesting to your physician prospects as when you're talking about how you serve physicians and how you improve their condition. Talking about the results that you help physicians helps you in another way. The person who's most persuasive in the eyes of a physician is another physician. So you have a third-party endorsement anytime you're talking about what another physician that you serve is doing. Next, high performers host effective events. What that means is that it offers physicians something that they want rather than what they need. So we were working with an advisor who had an asset protection product. They wanted to host an event to talk about how physicians could protect their assets in the event of catastrophic lawsuits. We told them that that simply wasn't going to draw an audience, we could promise. However, if they had an event, how to conduct your practice so patients thank you rather than sue you, and offer some real concrete tips about how physicians can get something that they really want, which is not being sued. They'd have the physician's attention, and then they'd be able to talk about their product at the very end. You have enough knowledge that you know what physicians need. Unfortunately, with these busy physicians, you've got to offer them what they want in order to attract their attention. And we've got a list of events. We can help you identify the things that really capture physicians' attention.
Well, Vicki, if I may, I'll just interject here. When you talk about putting together events, clearly an educational event for physicians' husbands and wives, to really, if you will, a partner program. We have an awful lot of physicians who have physician auxiliaries in almost every single area of specialty in the medical market. And in our work together, we found that if we help them come together and get that auxiliary involved, get a hospital to sponsor it, get a clinic to sponsor it, it really gives them a competitive advantage, the hospital and the clinic, if they offer partner programs for the husband and wife to be able to, if you will, attract and retain top physician talent. And we found that physicians and their spouses absolutely will come to an event that helps them manage their household expenses, if you will, and plan for the retirement that both of them believe they deserve, because no matter who's the physician in the family, from our work together, Vicki, we know that both the husband and the wife are very, very, shall we say, feel as though they're both making sacrifices to be able to be in this so-called world of medicine, so they both expect to be rewarded, and helping them to, if you will, manage the family money, a program around that, a process, an event around that, we found from our experience together that we'll get a large turnout. And if you work with a hospital and a clinic to sponsor it, it gives them a value-added program for the physicians that are aligned with them. That's our experience, and I would suggest that would be the type of programming they would use. Would you agree?
Absolutely. If you think about how pharmaceutical reps attract the attention of physicians, it's through education. I mean, we talked about the fact that physicians are educators. When you position yourself as an educator, delivering high-value content that physicians want to receive, you put yourself at a competitive advantage. And, you don't have to have the expertise yourself. As you were saying, Richard, we've got this content that you can package and deliver. But what's really important is that you're offering something that they truly want. And we know what they want. So we've got some winners for you, all packaged and ready to go. Next point is, when you think about these events, high performers understand the medical cycles. Virtually every physician who makes a career transition does so on July 1st. And why is this? It's because medical school begins on July 1st, residency begins on July 1st, and physicians launch into their practice on July 1st. Almost all contracts are done on an annual basis. So if you want to take advantage of the real opportunity, the fresh starts, the high performers make summer their really busy prospecting time. Hobbyists take summer vacations. High performers recognize this opportunity. There are other times when physicians are more open to new relationships than others. And I believe that with the kinds of financial wake-up calls that they've gotten, this is a really great time. You can find other occasions. For example, I mentioned this electronic medical record. It turns out that the government is offering up to a $45,000 rebate for the early adapters. What if you brought this kind of information to your physician prospects and let them know about it? And by the way, the deadline for this is February 28th, I believe, 2013, to get the full credit for 2012. Next, high performers build on their success. They understand how to leverage their existing relationships and build new business. If you adopt a spirit of service and you go to people in your community and you say something like, this is a really challenging time for physicians. And because physicians help our community so much, I am dedicated to helping them. If you know any physicians who would like, and then you let them know what you're offering. Maybe it's an ebook that we'd be happy to help you co-brand to help doctors get more patients. Maybe it's about how to avoid lawsuits. Maybe it's how to talk to patients about money. Just let members of your community know that you've got this kind of value that you're happy to deliver, and let them pass along the word. We were working with one of our advisors who was talking about how to purchase leads. What's the best way to purchase leads? And as we were talking with him, we discovered that he had physician family members. He used to be a pharmaceutical sales rep, and a bunch of his college buddies were still doing sales for either pharmaceutical organizations or medical device companies. Well, instead of buying leads, we just suggested to him, why not just deliver value to these people and let these people get the word out that you have a sincere commitment to helping physicians take charge of their financial destiny.
Yeah, I'm reminded of our guy in San Diego that had almost a near the exact experience. He had 3 or 4 clients, wanted to buy leads. Today he's got over 100 physician clients because he went to prospects and said, listen, I'm currently working with 3, 4, 5 physicians in San Diego. And the physician said, oh, so you understand my problems. Well, let's talk about some of the issues you want to. So if you have physician clients, you have an incredible leverage point. It's not about buying leads. You could get warm introductions to other physicians in their area of specialty, because podiatrists know other podiatrists, cardiologists know other cardiologists, anesthesiologists know other anesthesiologists. And if you go into your anesthesiologist client and say, here are 5 or 10 or 15 anesthesiologists, I would like to meet in our area. Who do you know? Which ones know you? The reality is they're likely going to know many of these people. And then if you simply ask them, how should I go about meeting these people? And then suggest a couple of ideas, such as, Should I do an event? Should we do a little golf outing on Wednesday, which is typically your day off? Or better yet, Doc, what would you suggest I do to meet these other 3 or 4 or 5 physicians you know? It's amazing how they will plug you in if they perceive that you're there in the spirit of service and not just there to sell them something. Vicki?
Absolutely, I agree. And Richard, wouldn't you agree that the people on this call are in general pioneers? There aren't very many people who are carving this out as a niche market, and it's notable. If you have in your email signature file serving podiatrists, serving anesthesiologists, that catches people's attention. And as you say, Richard, physicians want to go to the best. They want to go to the experts. And if you're making this investment in this kind of expertise, that's going to attract more prospects to you.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no question in our work together, Vicki, and all the years I've known you and all the conferences we've attended. I mean, the thing that always strikes me is when you talk to a physician, if you use a few words, I mean, how low is this bar? A few words out of their area of specialty, they immediately have a connection with you because they think that number one, you know them, and number two, you understand the, shall we say, not only the pecking order, but most importantly, you understand the very things that they're dealing with in their area of specialty. All the more reason to do great research and understand that market.
Absolutely. It's sort of like you've got the secret handshake. I was listening to a webinar hosted by a different organization, and the speaker was talking about the physician niche, and she mentioned something about physicians taking calls, plural, and physicians don't take calls, they take call, C-A-L-L. So little things like that can make a huge difference. You want to have the secret handshake. You want to say, I'm one of you. And by the way, this idea of a handshake, that whole ritual started out as a way of demonstrating that parties came to a meeting unarmed. And physicians really want to know that you are not armed with a sales pitch. They really need to trust that. So this mental handshake is something that we talk a lot about.
Yeah, I mean, physicians clearly want to be served. They absolutely, positively do not want to be sold. They don't want to buy anything. They want to solve everything around their financial world because it's confusing, it's concerning, and most importantly, they're not necessarily good communicators about the issues, and they need guidance and someone that will ask questions about their finances to help them sort through the very points they want to discuss with an advisor. And advisors are well served to ask great questions to open the discussion so that the, if you will, the physician recognizes you're there to serve them, not just there to sell them something.
Right. So the best way to undermine your credibility in the physician niche is to be aggressive about sales. So not only will people who do that not get that physician as a client, but that physician will talk about you in the surgeon's lounge. So be careful about what you do, because word of mouth just is a powerful force in the world of medicine. So be very, very careful. Make it work for you so that you join the high performers. Next, high performers solicit feedback. They're always wondering, how am I doing? And they're always trying to do better. It turns out that if you're going to have a heart attack, Seattle is the best place to have it, because if you have a heart attack here, you have about twice the chance of surviving as you do in any other part of the country. The reason is clear. It's because we have somebody who constantly takes a look at every step in the process and has an ongoing dedication to making it better. How can you improve it? We notice that high performers are constantly doing that. They're constantly asking, how can we serve you better? And by the way, 2 phrases that are magical with physicians is, could you help me? And could you show me how? So hobbyists tend to think that they've got to go to physicians with answers. High performers bring good questions to physicians. That's what physicians want. So let's pull this all together and talk about the strategic plan. There's 6 basic steps that we've seen in our high performers. There's a way of actually getting from no physician clients at all to a thriving physician practice. Step 1 is choose your specific physician vertical market. Decide on the doctors you want to work with. Is it physicians? Is it dentists? Is it orthodontists? While many choose their niche on the basis of specialty, there's other ways of doing it. We're working with a Black advisor. He is involved with Black physician organizations. We know others who have become involved with women, with foreign medical graduates. Whatever calls to you, there's a pretty good chance that there's an organization, there's a group of physicians who get together around that. Step number 2 is conduct deep research. Really understand what makes doctors tick. If you were going to go out fishing, you'd find out a lot about the life cycle of the fish before you went. You'd want to know when you could catch them, where they physically are at different stages of the life cycle, what kind of bait you use, what kind of rods. You want to know all of those things too about physicians, because your marketing materials, your engagement tools, these events that Richard was talking about, or the article reprints or the ebooks, these are like your bait, and you want to choose well. You want to understand what it is that physicians want. You want to understand where they congregate, because your best strategy of connecting with them is meeting them where they gather. It's not trying to get them out for lunch or breakfast, because that's going to be very, very challenging to do. It's finding out where they're meeting and joining them there. Next, become highly visible in this market. Become known. Be present. Be trusted. Be part of the group. Learn their secret handshake. Next, consistently cultivate relationships. Physicians are at the center of a web of relationships, and there are many ways of impacting people who impact doctors. For example, if you were in the orthodontics market, there is an organization called Invisalign. They sell invisible braces. They also are very aggressive in marketing to orthodontists. What if you hosted some kind of event for them? They would basically invite their list to your event, a great way of getting in front of people. At any hospital, there's somebody in the medical staff office we call the den mother. This is the person who's in charge of everything and everyone. If you want to get something done, you go to the den mother. What if you help the den mother solve a problem that she wants solved? Well, that would mean that you would basically have an introduction to all of the new physicians who come through the hospital. So high performers are constantly cultivating these relationships. Next, ask for warm introductions. We have this script that's highly effective. However, I also want to add something about sort of the spirit of referrals. You might wonder, why do people pass along your name or not? And the truth is that think about how good you feel when you give out the name of a restaurant or a grapevine that you have. It feels good to offer information that will help other people. It increases your social currency. Physicians want to do that too. Remember, they're wired to serve. They are dedicated to service. They want to improve the condition of their friends and colleagues. Now, why wouldn't they pass along your name? Well, probably for the reason that most people wouldn't want to. They worry about their confidentiality. Well, if you're modeling yourself after a physician, when you go to the doctor's office, you sign this HIPAA form to assure your medical privacy. Maybe you want to make a FIPA form to assure a client's financial privacy, so that they know that if they pass their name along to somebody else, their privacy is going to be assured. Maybe you give them a prescription to invite a friend to join your event, or contact you to get a special ebook about how to get more referrals. The warm introductions is a powerful practice-building habit in this particular market. And next, be patient and treat the physician market as your calling. The truth is that physicians serve patients and families and communities. When you are serving these physicians, you are helping not just that physician, but you're helping all of the other people that that physician trusts. You know, I've had the privilege of being in the operating room and holding the human heart in my hands. And when you serve physicians, you touch their hearts in very real and profound ways that sends out ripples through the whole community, and we would be honored to help you in any way we can get there.
Thank you, Vicki. I appreciate so very much not only your insight, but your caring heart and how you have served not only all of our coaching clients thus far, but all the others that are on this call. We've done this as a free webinar for you because many of you are considering the physicians market. Many of you are wondering, can I work in the medical community effectively? And so our objective here was very, very straightforward. We wanted to bring you the information you need to make a good decision about whether the physicians market is really a calling for you. If it is, and if you have questions either about this webinar or about our coaching programs, as many of you know, our coaching programs are all custom. We don't have a cookie cutter approach. What we do is identify the 1, 2, 3 issues that you really are thinking about executing or issues you're trying to solve. And then Vicki and I and the rest of our coaching team partner with you to put together a plan, a process, and provide you the discipline to be able to execute brilliantly. So if you're interested in coaching or if you have a question you'd like to send along, feel welcome to do so. You can send it to your questions to Terry, you see it on your screen, at richardweylman.com. If you're interested in coaching, send along an email and just say, interested in coaching, here are the 2 or 3 things that I would like to have some help with. You may have 4 or 5, but we'd like to have a clear picture of what your issues are so that we can decide if we really are the right resource for you. Because the reality is, we, like all doctors, if you will, physicians know what they're good at. They also know what they're not good at. They also know whether, in fact, they can provide the care that you may need if you need help to be able to, if you will, become healthy. We are in the exact same space. We will provide you clearly a step-by-step process if we can be a resource to you. And if not, we'll so tell you that. If you have individual questions, we'd ask you to send and make them very specific. Send those along to Terry. Be patient with us. Every time we've done these type of webinars and all the markets that we've helped individual advisors move forward in, we just ask that you give us very specific questions so that we can be responsive and be patient. We will respond to you. And even if they're not about coaching, you just simply have a question, we will respond to you and give you the best possible answer we can to help you to elevate your business performance in today's marketplace. At Weylman Consulting Group, I will tell you, we're just delighted that you've taken the time to listen to this webinar and to listen to Dr. Rackner talk about how you too can be successful working with physicians, providing, of course, you find it's a calling for you and you truly want to be a high performer in this market. Thank you all very much. We look forward to hearing from you, and most importantly, we look forward to you having a great year in the year ahead. Thank you for the time you've invested, and we look forward to hearing about how you have elevated your business performance in the physicians marketplace.